Growth Pod is brought to you by Genero, a leading growth agency in the Nordics. We interview marketing experts, business leaders, and entrepreneurs to uncover the stories and strategies behind profitable growth.
This is a conversation with Richard Bergfors, the CEO of MAX. MAX is Sweden's favorite burger chain with over 170 locations around the world. In this episode, we talk about Richard's favorite burgers, how MAX is able to compete with McDonald's and Burger King, why they're no longer in Dubai, the impact of the so-called better burger trend, and a lot more. Please enjoy this conversation with Richard Bergfors. So, the first MAX was opened in 1968 in Gällivare in northern Sweden. It was not called MAX, but that was the first restaurant that your parents opened. What are your first memories of MAX and the burger chain?
Well, it was, of course, I was born later. I was born in 1975, and my parents started in 1968. So some years later, I was born, and it was probably, and I was born in Luleå, not Gällivare. So, but by that time, my parents had opened the MAX and changed the name to MAX in Luleå. So it was probably the first restaurant in Luleå where I first, tasted my first MAX burgers. I would like to say that I remember it, but I can't really. I don't remember so much from these early years, like when you were 2 or 3 years old. But I've been eating burgers ever since, and working in the restaurant industry since I was like 10 years old. So yeah.
So, but by the time you were growing up, MAX was already a chain and established in multiple locations. Was it always clear to you that you were going to join the restaurant industry and join the family business, or did you have other plans?
Well, it was not clear that I would join MAX. I would say, of course, I started working. By that at that time, we also had hotels and nightclubs and more traditional restaurants like steakhouses and French gourmet restaurants. So I started to work in the restaurants industry very early, like when I was 11 years or 10 years. But I really enjoyed it. So yeah, it was quite early on. I figured out that I probably wanted to be in the hospitality industry, doing something. But it was never like my goal to become the president of MAX or anything like that. I just kept on working during my years in school, and one thing led to another, and I thought it was really fun the whole time. When I was like 26 or something like that, I became the president of the company.
That was pretty young, and the company was quite big already at that point, right?
Yeah, much smaller than it's today, but still it was a decent sized company, and I was young, but I by that time I had already worked many years in the industry, so I knew the restaurant industry quite well, and obviously my father and the board believed in me, and they made me president. But at that time, I never imagined that I would be president for, like I've been now, for 21, 22 years. I thought that, okay, I will do this for 5 years and then I will do something else. But it's been, a fun ride, and there's very few days that I'm bored. So and I said that as long as I have fun doing what I do, and that I feel that I contribute to the company's success, I will continue to do it.
One of the things that's striking about you is that you really love burgers. You have a Instagram account called Burgerspotting, which is exactly what it sounds like. You have like 2,000 posts of you traveling around the world eating burgers, and I think it says something. Burgers are your passion, hobby, job, and life.
Yeah.
And is it true that you eat burgers every single day? Is that still something that you do? Or?
Yeah. I eat. I mean, of course, there's might be 1 or 2 days there when I don't have a burger, but then I can have 10 the next day. So if I do, I mean, I easily eat more than 400 burgers a year. Probably close to 1,000. So most of the days I eat burgers, and a lot of days I eat lots of burgers. So when I go on my burger tours, for instance, I that like last year we went to LA. We were there for like 72 hours, and we ate something like close to 300 products. So yeah, so that's a lot.
that is a lot. Do you think that this kind of genuine passion that you have is also impacts the company and how the employees think about their job and the food? Like, do you think it shows in the DNA of the company, and then eventually in the experience that customers have this true passion for food and burgers?
Yeah, I'm quite sure it does, and I think that's probably one of our biggest strengths, versus our competitors. That and it started like with my mother and father, who had a genuine passion for food and have always had, and have now, zippered down to me and my siblings. So it's not fake. It's like burgers are our number one meal. We love it, and we love food in general, and so we put a lot of focus on the food and the product development of new products, and always try to aim as high as possible, and that's why the guest loves us and prefer us versus our main competitors, which is McDonald's and Burger King. But also, I think the passion shows in the DNA of the company, and the staff get inspired by it, and hopefully they can feel it too, and really, give that little extra effort making the best possible meal.
Totally. I just have to ask, because you traveled and spent so much time going to all around the world eating the best burgers. Is there any specific place that you go to where you think they have the best burgers? I know that Miami is one where you've have a few of your favorite spots, but any specific place?
I would say it's quite an even battle between New York and California. Both have a lot of good burgers. They are a little bit different. Like New York is more conservative, have more of a pub style, old school burger scene, which I like. And California is a little bit more progressive, have more thinner burger, more smash burger, if you like. But I love any type of burgers. That it doesn't mean if it's thick or thin. I think it's like different dishes, and sometimes I want a big, meaty, perfectly cooked burger that's really juicy, and sometimes I want a thin patty that have caramelized surface and lots of stuff on it. So yeah, I it's hard to choose, but if you go to New York or go to LA, you are sure to have some great burgers.
For sure. And like you said, this passion is evident and the customers are noticing it. You've been voted consistently the most popular burger chain of the national chains in Sweden. Obviously, as you mentioned, you're facing some pretty stiff competition from companies that are pretty successful, and they know what they're doing. What do you think that secret is? Because the secret to that kind of continued success and high quality, because it's one thing to make, let's say you have a restaurant in California and you're serving 100 burgers a day. That's one thing. Like, you could put a lot of focus, you can grind meat yourself, you can bake the buns if you want, but you are serving millions of burgers with thousands of employees. So how are you able to maintain such a high level of consistency, even as you're growing a lot across, not just in Sweden, but also globally or internationally?
Yeah, and that's of course the hard part, because I always say that it's quite easy, or at least for me, it would be easy to open, the best burger joint in the world, because I don't know if there's anyone alive that have eaten more burgers than me. So I know how to do it, but it's a huge difference between opening one place that serves like 100 customers or 200 customers, and the waiting time is long, and the price is high, and so on. And you are there yourself, or just with your most trusted employees, and it's quite easy. But it's difficult to open number 2 and number 3, and if you open number 20, it will be, and most people fail because they don't realize that, just because you are a good chef or like food or is a good restaurateur, it doesn't mean that you are good at running a chain or a big company with several locations. So there's where most people, they cannot handle that transition, because it's a different mindset. You have to, of course, be super focused on details and trying to strive making, the best possible products, but you have to have into account, several other factors, like, okay, I'm going to serve 2,000 customers a day with this type of staff and so on. So you have to, find a balance between qualities, taste, speed, price, value for money, and appealness to appeal to a broad audience, and that's really the trick. And so one is, of course, to have figure out the right concept, which tops all these different categories, or at least comes high enough. You don't have to be best at everything, but you might have to be best at some of the parameters, but good enough. And then, of course, you have to have systems to follow up. Systems to educate the staff, to follow up, and that's the boring part. It never ends. It's the same every day, and you have to just be focused on and measure a lot of different stuff, and really try to every day make it a little bit better. But I guess we will never be done. It's a constant battle, I would say.
Do you think you have a competitive advantage against your large international competitors in that, being it's a family-run business, you're close to the market, close to the customers, and you're consistently trying to make things better? It's fueled by that passion and that desire to always keep kind of pushing and for perfection. Do you think that translates into a competitive advantage?
Yeah, I do. I think that's probably the biggest competitive advantage for us, because we just answer to ourselves. We can have a much longer term in longer perspective in our decision making. We can be faster as well, because we don't have to check with, I don't know, Chicago or Miami or somewhere else, or the stock market. We are privately owned, so we do what we feel it's right, and it's sometimes based on science, but a lot of times it's just based on a hunch or gut feeling, because we've been doing this for such a long time, and most of the times we are right, not always, of course, but as we say, we always try to be a little bit better, and if we do something wrong, that's not the end of the day. It's just to step back and fix it, and then do it right next time.
Totally. Is there any what kind of role does the gut feeling play? Because like you said, you probably eaten more burgers than anyone alive, and all around the world, the best burgers. So do you take that kind of like inspiration that you get from your travels and try to implement it in Max, or is it a matter of doing customer surveys? How are you trying to kind of get that input on which you make your decisions, whether it's about menu or other changes inside the restaurants?
I mean, it's both, but I mean, a lot of our products or ideas has come from our traveling. So we get a lot of ideas and inspiration, and see something, and it might not be that we launch that exact thing, but that could lead to an idea or an inspiration, and then we find our own twist on it. So I would say that maybe 50% of our products or innovation comes from not just me, but I do a lot of travel, but I have our chef team that travels with me and travels alone sometimes. My brother and my father used to do it as well. So a lot of inspiration comes from that, and the other 50%, I would say, comes from either customers or staff that comes up with some idea or figure out a new way of making something easier or something like that.
Got it. Max has been, at least recently, you've had a lot of successes. Last year was a record-breaking year, first year of over 5 billion Swedish krona in revenue. So that's about half a billion euros, and did it with solid growth, double-digit growth, solid profitability. And I think this year or in the next coming years, you're kind of looking to maybe take the number one spot in Sweden as the biggest burger chain. Is that?
Yeah, well, I don't think we will do it this year, but hopefully in not too far down the road, in a couple of years, I would say that, because we are getting closer to them, and we are continue to grow, opening new restaurants and also growing on existing ones, and they are basically closing down, or have at least done so the last 5 years. So we are gaining market shares and they are losing market shares. So we are getting closer, but I think it's probably like 3 years down the line, but that has really never been a goal for us to be bigger than McDonald's. It just happens to be so, or hopefully will be so, because we are growing and they are not. But in the global perspective, we are still a tiny player compared to the giant McDonald's. So they will always be the biggest.
Yeah, for sure. And just to put that in context, I found some stats that said that in 2016, McDonald's in Sweden was almost twice as large in terms of net sales. So there's been quite a shift in the last couple of years.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, because we are growing, gaining popularity, and also opening new restaurants, and they are somehow rather closing restaurants than opening new ones. So it's a shift, and it's been ongoing for as long as I've been president, actually. So we are slowly but surely gaining on them in Sweden, and then of course in Poland we are. They have like 600 restaurants, and we have not even 30. So there's it's a long way to go there.
There's some work to be done.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the internationalization strategy, because internationalization in and of itself is very difficult. Like, you created Max as it was born in Sweden. It kind of, you grew alongside, I guess, the whole Swedish food category was growing, the burger category was growing, and people's preferences were changing, and you were helping drive that market. But then you're in Poland, you're also in Egypt, and especially maybe Egypt feels like a completely different market. So on the face of it, it seems very strange that why are they eating Swedish burgers in Egypt? So can you talk about a little bit about the decisions to go into those different markets, and how you've been able to establish yourselves and be successful in these different countries?
Yeah, well, Egypt or Middle East is a little bit different because like in Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, and also Poland, we run and operate. I mean, we own the business ourselves. In Egypt, it's a franchise market, so it's a master franchise that owns and run the restaurants there, and so it was more of a random thing, actually, that this family, Egypt family, they were in the food business, and they reached out to us. They got in contact with Max and liked the brand and liked the products, and I wanted to open in Egypt, and I think I said no for the last 2 or 3 times they asked, but then obviously I was in a good mood one day, and I said, why not? Let's try. Might be a fun and adventure, and I mean, the Middle East market is big, but it was more of a trial and error type of thing versus Norway, Denmark, and Poland, which has been in the plans for much a longer time, and of course are closer to Sweden, both geographically but also culturally. So those makes more sense, especially, I mean, Norway and Denmark, which is neighboring countries, but Poland we went into because of, I mean, the potential on the market that it's bigger than the whole of Scandinavia combined. So 40 million people. So it's basically just McDonald's there. So we see a gap in the market, and a market that we really can grow hundreds of units and do it for many years. So that's the reason for that.
Yeah, that seems to make a lot of business sense. Have you had to make any major changes in your messaging or your menu as you've gone to Poland, for instance, or is it pretty much like copying what works in Sweden?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, a little bit slimmer menu, that we don't have all the product. We have a very wide menu in Sweden, and it has a lot to do with our heritage. That, I mean, we've been in the business for 55 years, and there's a lot of products that are old, but they are still, favorites among a lot of our customers. So they get really upset if we, remove them. Versus when you enter a new market, you don't have that heritage, so you can, slim the menu and just, bring more or less the top sellers. So that is more or less the only difference. So else, the taste and the look and feel of the restaurants are very similar to the Swedish ones.
Got it. Just on a kind of personal, emotional level, what does it feel like to see, let's say, a Max restaurant in Egypt and see an Egyptian family go and enjoy those burgers? knowing kind of how it all started and working there for so long and being through this whole journey, does it feel a bit like surreal to think that those they're all around?
It surely does, and it's I mean that's one of the things I enjoy most about my work is to, when you open a new restaurant, anywhere, but especially outside Sweden, I would say, but also in Sweden, when you open the restaurant and you see all the customers coming and enjoying the food, you chat with them and they get positive feedback, hopefully. And you talk to the staff, and I mean that's what I enjoy the most about my work, because often, I mean, people think that it's just to open a restaurant, but I mean, I might have been working with a single location for 10 years when I started to work with it, and then 10 years after there's a restaurant on the site. So it could take many years, and often it's quicker, but it's still at least 2 years. So you've been living with the project for such a long time. So it's like Christmas Day when we finally open and the customers are coming, and if it's a big success that there's thousands and thousands of customers, it's even greater joy.
Yeah, I could totally understand that. So we talked about some of the successes that you've had. What about some failures or difficult moments? Is there anything that stands out from your decades experience?
Well, yeah, we were tough? I mean, before we were in Egypt, we were actually in Dubai or United Arab Emirates, also with a franchise solution with a Indian family that had other businesses in the region, but they really didn't have any experience in the food industry, but they were very, very big in retail and so on. So we went along and opened a number of restaurants, I think 10 or maybe it was even 12, but it really didn't work at the end, because it was, I mean, the competition was hard, but also I have to say the biggest mistake was that they, in my opinion, they were, not the right franchisees. They didn't understand the restaurant business and the fast food business, and they didn't have the same type of focus on quality as we do. So it ended up that they closed all the restaurants. So there's no more there. But we put a lot of time and effort trying to help them. But I mean, we didn't lose so much money, but it was emotionally it was like a set down.
Yeah, totally. I'm guessing like the quality is one of the thing that's most difficult when it comes to expanding.
Yeah.
Just a chain in general, but especially internationally. It's like, how do you get someone who's that committed to quality as you are?
Yeah.
Is it about systems?
Yeah, systems
and
right partners and checkups and stuff like that. But also, of course, finding the right suppliers, because you cannot, or you can, but it will be very expensive and that doesn't make sense, or through a sustainable approach to send everything from Sweden, for instance, all across the world. So you have to find local suppliers that are as committed to quality as yourself. So that's quite difficult, and it takes a lot of time.
I'd be interested to get your perspective on some of the trends in the market, because I feel like it's changed a lot in the last 10 years, for instance. Pretty much 10 years, we've had this better burger trend going in Europe. In the US, you had the likes of Five Guys and Shake Shack. In Sweden, in Stockholm, there's a bunch of restaurants. I think the biggest new better burger chain in Sweden is Bastard Burger. They're also in other countries. So have you kind of seen that change? Is there a growing demand for burgers that are a little bit pricier, but in terms of ingredients, they're a little bit higher quality. And how are you thinking about your place in the market as Max?
Yeah, it has definitely been a trend like that where people, demand higher quality, better taste, and are, prepared to pay a bit more and wait a bit longer. So that's been going on for the last 10 years. And I mean, it's exploded. There are so many everywhere. It's like almost, at least in the big cities, it's like in every corner. And that has actually joined us because we are the better quality premium burger in the fast food segment, which is the mass market. Because most of these better burger chains, they serve 200 customers a day. We serve 2,000. So it's a different market, a different location. So they really don't affect us. But we get the spillover because people demand higher quality and better taste, better ingredients, and they choose us versus McDonald's and Burger King. So we have actually been helped by the trend, even if the competition is greater than ever, but they are not really our competitors. But at the other hand, I think so I would say like it's never been more popular to eat burgers than it is now, or it was a year ago. But I think my hunch is that the trend has peaked, and there will be fewer of these places in the future because it's over. There are too many. None of them, or very few of them, make money, and people, especially in the like overall economic situation we are in now, people, and with the inflation before, the prices are a bit too high, and people can't afford to eat as often as they used to. So I think it will be a big shift. I mean, the trend is going down, and a lot of them will probably have to close or being bought by others. So it will be a consolidation phase in the industry where a couple will probably survive, but the rest will more or less disappear. And this happened before as well. It was the same in the 70s in Sweden, where it was the same in the fast food segment, where there were like 30 or 40 local chains, like McDonald's copies or something. If you and none of them are left. It's just Max. So it was the same back then.
Yeah, I guess all industries go through those stages. Yeah. Eventually, and we're already, like, to your point, that we're already seeing that in Sweden. There's been some bankruptcies and restructurings and things of that nature.
Exactly.
Another trend that's obviously been very talked about in a long time is the shift towards vegetarian, vegan, and white meat products, and that's something that Max, I think you were really ahead of the curve when it comes to this. So how did that go about? How did that come about? And has it played out the way you expected it to? What are your thoughts on it?
It has. I mean, I guess first it was my father. He was always very interested in vegetarian and vegan stuff, and from the 80s. So he's always tried this, and we tried it many times, in different formats to move away from red meat towards vegetables and stuff. But it was never a big success until 10 years ago or something like that. But when it really, so I think the timing were wrong, the previous attempts, but we never gave up, or he never gave up. So he were always pushing us to do something, and finally we got it right, I mean, it was really one of the biggest success ever. And after that, we have redone the menu many times and updated it, but it's still, I mean, we are today from, if I look back like 20 years, we sold more or less 100% red meat in our restaurants, and today it's 50-50, more or less. So it's been a big transformation, and in my opinion, it will continue, but it moves slower now. Since I would say since the pandemic, the increases are not as big as they used to be in terms of alternatives to red meat, and I guess the reason is, I mean, the overall insecurity and anxiety in the world, with first the pandemic and then the wars and everything and the inflation. People tend to seek comfort and more like what they used to eat back in the days. They are not as adventurous. They are less likely to gamble and try new things. So, but it will probably be like this for a couple of years. But I'm sure that the long-term trend will, with substitutes of red meat, it can be red meat as well that's done in a lab or something, but it will just continue and will accelerate again.
I think it's pretty remarkable that you're already at kind of 50-50. I'm guessing that's a lot higher than some of your competitors.
Yeah.
And as a result of that kind of long-term investment that you made as a company.
Yeah. I would say that we are one of, at least probably the chain that have gone the furthest coming from beef. Today there are some smaller chains that only serve vegan food in the States and in Europe as well, but they started like that. We started as a beef company and have transformed. So I would say that that's probably word unique and something we really believe in. Not only, I mean, in terms of sustainability, it's a major shift which reduces our climate impact, which we feel is super important. But we also, believe that it is the future. It's good for business in the long run, because people have to eat food with lower climate impact. The food industry is about 30% of the total emissions globally, and it's impossible to continue as we do. So I think we are, fairly good position for the future, but we are not done either. We are constantly challenging ourselves. And
yeah, okay. Richard, I just have a couple of kind of rapid fire questions here for you at the end. Number one, when you go to Max, what do you order?
Oof, that's I order everything, but so I really don't have a favorite that I always order. I tend to order like the latest products that we have developed because they I like to try them lots of times, and they are new, of course. So but I mean, I would say if I probably have two like go-to classic. One is like a plain cheeseburger with the original dressing and onions. That's always a go-to burger, which I've been eating since I was a kid. And the other one, which has been my favorite for like the last year is actually a vegetarian burger, which is made of beans, which is called the Real Green, and I really, really love this burger. There's so much taste in it, and still usefulness. So those two, I would say, is at least the last year is the ones that I've been eating most of.
You've been working in the restaurant and burger industry for decades now. Is there something that you recently changed your mind about, or something that you recently discovered that you didn't know already before about the kind of industry?
Well, yeah, it's probably, I mean, you learn every day, and I've been doing it for such a long time, but I would say maybe not recently, but what I've learned is, which I think naively I didn't thought before, it's that it's much harder to expand international than you first think. It costs much more money and takes much more time, and so you have to be super long term and have big patience and a lot of focus. So I would say that, and that's why I mean, even if I don't think they make the most fantastic burgers, I really admire like companies like McDonald's that all over the world and taste as shitty everywhere, but they are very consistent in quality. So I mean, I really admire them. Even though my personal vision is to save the world from McDonald's, but I'm not doing a super job at that, because they are still number one in the world and continue to grow, and which in a much faster pace than us. So, but they do a good job.
Kind of related to that, is there any chain around the world that, you mentioned McDonald's, you admire them for their scale ability to replicate what they have across the world. Is there any chain around the world that you found that you say, oh, this is what I want Max to be like? Any other chain except McDonald's that you take inspiration from, as maybe especially when it comes to quality?
Yeah. I would say two chains. One that I always admire, which is In-N-Out in California, which is a family company. They grow quite slow. They have like 400 restaurants, which is little in the States, but they are company owned. They own all the restaurant, no franchise, and very dedicated to quality, and basically never changes anything. I mean, the menu is very slim, and they don't bring in new products, and or very rarely at least. So I like them because of their like 100% focus on the heritage and the quality, and they probably gotten thousands of offers to sell or do franchise or whatever, but they have always constantly said no. So that's like an old school burger chain, which I really like, and in terms of a little bit more progressive chain, I would say they are also old, but I would say Chick-fil-A, which has been probably the most successful chain in the States the last decade with I mean average turnover of I think they are like 3 times bigger than McDonald's in average turnover per unit. So they have so much people, and people love them, and they are also, I mean, they tend to change a bit, and they are quite advanced in terms of technology and everything, but the menu is also very, very small, very consistent, and that's why they can have such high quality and good speed and still with affordable prices. So that's really impressive what they have done.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to have restaurants that are making 6, 7, 8 million per unit. That's really wild. All right, last question. Max had a record-breaking year last year. If for 2024, is there anything that you're particularly excited, focused, or worried about?
Well, of course, the worried about the overall instability in the world, which affects, of course, humans, but also the industry, and that it's quite unpredictable and has been for the last 3-4 years. So that's always, hopefully, everything will move towards a better situation, but you never know, and that could have major effects. So that's my worry. But besides that, I'm fairly optimistic, and so I look forward to this year and next year as well, which I mean this year will be better than last year and the previous years. So I think we are moving in the right direction. It might not be a super year, but I definitely feel it moves in the right direction, and we can have a decent year.
And as a family-owned business, you can afford to take it not take it slow, but you can be patient, and it doesn't matter if not every quarter is exactly the way it's supposed to be. It's a long-term investment.
Exactly. We are in it for the long run.
All right, Richard, thank you so much for joining us and sharing about the kind of past, present, and future of Max. For people who want to follow you, I'm guessing Instagram, Burgerspotting is one channel. Is there any place else that you're active?
No, I try to focus on Burgerspotting. It's where I connect to people, and I also give my tips of the best burgers on the planet.
So anyone's interested in burger, that's definitely a go-to account. I'll link that in the show notes. Like I said, Richard, thank you so much. I wish you and Max all the best for this year and a lot of success.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you for listening. You can find all episodes of The Growth Pod on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts.